U.S. Supreme Court on April 8th temporarily halted a judge's order that required the Trump administration to return a Salvadoran man whom the government admitted was wrongly deported to El Salvador by the end of the day. Chief Justice John Roberts issued the brief administrative stay on behalf of the court, giving the justices more time to consider the administration's formal request to block the ruling as litigation proceeds. The case stems from a scathing order by U.S. District Judge Paula Sinhas, who found that the deportation was carried out unlawfully. In her ruling, issued on April 7th, Janess wrote, "There were no legal grounds whatsoever for his arrest, detention, or removal. It's wholly lawless." Abrego Garcia, who had been living legally in Maryland with a work permit, was deported on one of 3 controversial U.S. deportation flights to El Salvador. Those flights also reportedly included alleged Venezuelan gang members. The Justice Department acknowledged in its Supreme Court filing that Abrego Garcia had been deported through administrative error, though it maintained the deportation itself was not a mistake. Only the destination was. The government argued that although Abrego Garcia had previously received protection from deportation to El Salvador in 2019, he was no longer eligible for that safeguard due to alleged ties to the MS-13 criminal gang. Garcia has not been charged with any crime in the United States or abroad. His attorneys strongly dispute the MS-13 accusation, noting that he is married to an American citizen and raising their U.S.-born child along with his wife's 2 children from a previous relationship. In their Supreme Court filing, his lawyers argue Garcia has never been charged with a crime in any country, that he is not wanted by the government of El Salvador. He sits in a foreign prison solely at the behest of the United States as the product of a Kafka-esque mistake. Judge Dennis previously concluded that the 2019 protection order was still in force and that the U.S. government acted without lawful authority in detaining and deporting him. The administration, however, contends that the terrorism designation of MS-13 under President Trump's policies overrides his previous immigration protections. The U.S. Supreme Court on April 8th handed a major victory to Donald Trump's administration, allowing it to invoke a centuries-old wartime law to deport Venezuelan nationals, including alleged members of the trendy Arugula gang from American soil. The justices granted the administration's emergency request to lift a lower court's block on the use of the Alien Enemies Act, a rarely invoked law dating back to 1798. The decision paves the way for immediate removals and marks a significant step in Trump's broader crackdown on immigration during his second term. The law had only been used 3 times before during the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. In its Supreme Court filing, the administration argued that lower court rulings had hampered its ability to protect national security, particularly in removing suspected members of foreign terrorist groups. The court's decision, it said, helps preserve the government's ability to protect the nation against foreign terrorist organizations and prevents disruptions to delicate foreign negotiations. Celebrating the ruling, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posted a video on X declaring today is a bad day to be a terrorist in the United States of America. Today, the Supreme Court came out with a decision that reaffirmed President Trump was correct in using his authority on using the Alien Enemies Act to deport terrorists out of this country. Thank you, President Trump, for your leadership in making America safe. Attorney General Pam Bondi echoed the sentiment, calling the decision a landmark victory for the rule of law. She criticized what she termed an activist judge in Washington, D.C., who had temporarily halted the deportations, arguing that the judiciary had no authority to seize control of President Trump's authority to conduct foreign policy and keep the American people safe. The Department of Justice will continue fighting in court to make America safe again. Vice President J.D. Vance was even more blunt, posting, "The Supreme Court today rejected the idea that far-left judges in D.C. can overrule President Trump's immigration enforcement. This is a major loss for the lunatics and a major win for the American people. Onward and home." Meanwhile, a U.S. appeals court on April 8th declined to lift a judge's order temporarily blocking President Donald Trump's administration from deporting individuals to countries not previously discussed in their immigration proceedings, unless those individuals are first given a chance to prove they face a risk of persecution or torture. The decision handed down by a three-judge panel of the Boston-based First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals dealt a blow to the administration's efforts to accelerate removals under tightened immigration policies. The heart of the case is a nationwide temporary restraining order issued on March 28th by U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy, which has hamstrung the administration's ability to quickly deport thousands of migrants who in some instances are protected from removal to their home countries. The Justice Department had urged the appeals court to pause the lower court's ruling, arguing it was impairing the executive branch's ability to manage immigration policy and conduct international negotiations. In its filing, the Department of Justice warned the order may have irreparably harmed the executive's ability to negotiate the return of aliens to countries of which they are not a citizen. But the appeals panel pushed back, stating that temporary restraining orders, unlike preliminary injunctions, are typically not subject to appeal. Judge Murphy is expected to consider whether to escalate the order to a preliminary injunction during a hearing scheduled for April 10th.